हरि ओम। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Namaste friends. Team Param Vedanta welcomes you all to DISHA 60, a new series of an inward journey to discover our inner strength and happiness through Bhagavad Gita. Today, we are going to commence study of Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, the 14th chapter with the verses 1 to 18. Shri R.V. Bhaskar is today's speaker who will explain the verses. He will also touch upon the topic of Varna Dharma as explained in Tattva Bodha. After the presentation, we will have a teaching quiz on the topics covered by Shri Bhaskar. Now it's Shloka time, and Srimati Smita Pai is going to chant and explain Shri Nila Suktam. I invite Srimati Smita to chant and explain. Over to you, Smita, madam.
Thank you. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Nila Devi Gum Sharanamaham Prapadye Grinahi Gritavati Savitaradipatyehi Payasvatirantiraşano astu Druvadisham Vishnum Patyago Rasyeshana Sahasoya Manota Brahaspatirmatarishvota Vayussandhu Vanavata Abhino Grunantu Vishtambo Divodarunaf Prativya Asyeshana Jagato Vishnu Patni. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Nila Suktam is actually a small portion of 12th Yajus or the prose mantra in the 4th section in the 4th Kanda or the chapter of Krishna Yajurveda. The main text of the hymn extols the goddess as all-powerful, the consort of Vishnu, and seeks her compassion and benevolence. Nila Suktam is highly regarded as one among the Pancha Suktams. The other 4 usually are Purusha Suktam, Narayana Suktam, Shri Suktam, and Bhu Suktam. Nila Suktam is recited as a prayer to Nila Devi, the consort of Lord Vishnu, after Shri Devi and Bhu Devi. All 3 consorts of Lord Vishnu are the forms of Mahalakshmi. The meaning of the Suktam goes like this. I salute Nila Devi, the consort of Lord Vishnu. I invoke Nila Devi, the one who is full of ghee, the one who has control over the sun. May she protect us. May she also protect, may she who is full of milk protect us. The upholder of the direction, consort of Lord Vishnu, who is pleasant, who rules over the world with the strength and who is adorable. O divine consort of Vishnu, who supports the earth and the sky and rules over the worlds with strength and firmness, be compassionate to us. Brahaspatir Matarishvotu Vayussando Vanavata Abhino Grunantu. May Brahaspati, the preceptor of gods, Matarishwan, messenger of Agni, Vana and Vata refer to blowing wind. May this be gracious to us. Vishtambo Divo Dharanaf Prithavya, Asyeshana Jagato Vishnu Patni. She firmly holds up the heavens, supports the earth. May the obstacles of heavens and earth and the world be removed by Nila Devi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May there be peace. Dhanyavadaha.
Thank you, Smita ji, for wonderful prayer, Nila Suktam, and explanation of this. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Today's Disha is the initial verses of chapter 14. The title of chapter is Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. versus of guna traya. We are a combination of atma and anatma. As far as atma is concerned, we are free from all the gunas, so we are gunatita. The anatma component in us is the combination of three gunas, and Krishna talks about the three gunas as the stepping stones for atma jnanam and takes us to gunatita atma. As we have seen in previous classes, a creation is nothing but consciousness plus matter, or purusha plus prakriti, chetana tattvam and achetana tattvam, or brahman and maya. Likewise, every individual is a component of atma and anatma. Before we get into the chapter proper, let us go through the earlier chapter verses where these gunatraya is talked about. In verse 2.45, Krishna tells, the Vedas deals with the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, rise above the three modes to a state of pure spiritual consciousness, freeing yourself from dualities, eternally fixed in truth, and without concern for material gain and safety, be situated in the self. The material energy binds the divine soul of the bodily conception of the life by its three constituent modes. These modes of material nature are sattva, rajas, and tamas. The relative proportion of three modes varies for each individual. Due to these tendencies from countless past lives, and accordingly, everyone has different inclination and tendencies. The Vedic scriptures accept the disparity and give suitable instruction for all kinds of people. In verse 3.27, Krishna tells, all activities are carried out by three modes of material nature. But in ignorance, the soul, deluded by false identification with the body, thinks of itself as the doer. For the actions of our own body, we usually divide them into two categories. One is the natural biological functions such as digestion, blood circulation, heartbeat, etc., which do not consciously execute, but which occurs naturally. And the next is actions such as speaking, hearing, walking, sleeping, working, all that which we think we perform. But these categories of works are performed by mind, body, senses mechanism. All the parts of this mechanism are made of prakriti, of the material energy, which consists of three modes or gunas. Why then that the soul perceives itself as doing the activities? The reason is that the grip of unforgiving ego. The soul falsely identifies itself with the body. Hence, it remains under the illusion of doership. Let us say that there are two trains standing side by side over the railway platform, and a passenger on one train fixes his gaze on the other. When the second train moves, it seems that the first train is moving. Likewise, immobile soul identifies with the mobility of Prakriti. Thus, it perceives itself as the doer of actions. The movement of the soul eliminates the ego and surrenders to the will of God. It realizes itself as non-doer. In the very next verse, 3.28, Krishna tells, O mighty armed Arjuna, illumined person distinguish the soul as distinct from gunas and karmas. They perceive that it is only the gunas that move among the gunas in the shape of the objects of perception, and thus they do not get entangled in them. In the previous verse mentioned about the ahamkāra the vimud atma, those who have bewildered by the ego and misidentified themselves with the body, and they think themselves to be the doers. This verse talks about the tattvavit, or the knowers of the truth. Having abolished the ego, they are free from bodily identification and are able to discern the spiritual identity distinct from the corporeal body. Hence, they are not beguiled by the thinking of themselves as the doers of their material action, and instead they attribute every activity of the movement for the three gunas. In verse 7.13, Krishna says, that humans are deluded by three modes of Maya, that are ignorance, passion, and goodness. Maya, being one of the God's energy, is engaged in the service of hiding his true nature from the souls who are not yet eligible or God realized. It also troubles them with the problems and difficulties aided by the threefold material miseries. By this, Maya makes the soul realize that they never be happy unless they are facing towards God. 7.14 verse, Krishna says, my divine energy Maya, consisting of three modes of nature, is very difficult to overcome. But those who surrender unto me cross over it easily. And now, in the 14th chapter, which talks about Gunatraya, we will get to know what are gunas, the lakshana or the characteristics or the definition of each guna. What type of attachment happens with each guna, the bandhana prakara or the mode or method of bondage of each guna. How can one detach from each of the gunas? How can one become a gunatitha? And what transformation occurs in a gunatitha? We have Mr. R.V. Bhaskar describing us in detail about the analysis of guna and also the Tattvabodha portion, Varna, Dharma. Mr. R.V. Prasad, please.
Gurubhyo Namaha. Let me begin with a preface. In the previous chapter, the knowledge of our higher value was presented as I in a different context, addressed as Kshetrajna or Sakshi, witness principle, or Druk, the observer. And everything else is termed as the observed or Drishyam. Well, interestingly, in the present chapter, Sri Krishna deals with the same subject matter, Atma, and its nature, revealed as Gunatita Nirguna Tattvam, not possessing any attributes, and to the contrary, that which are with gunas are anatma, object, or saguna tattva. Recalling the previous chapter, what was presented as observer Druk, the same Atma in this chapter is presented as the attributeless principle in the form of Gunatraya, Gunatita Vibhaga Yoga, whereas the previous chapter dealt with Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga, that is subject-object differentiation. This chapter elucidates Saguna Nirguna Vibhaga, which purports Saguna having attributes are gunas, and is termed as Gunatraya, with threefold gunas inherent within it. The other is Nirguna Tattvam, termed as Gunatraya, transcending all attributes, which a seeker desperately wants. With this sort of a briefing, let's delve into the chapter proper. Here, Lord Krishna volunteers to teach Arjuna, even without Arjuna raising any question. The verse goes like this: Param Boya Prakashyami Dhanam Uttamam Yagnatva Muneye Sarva Param Siddhi Mitho Gataha. Well, it's intriguing as why such an act of repetition by the Lord. Well, there must be some profound reason for it. Shankaracharya says that when a subject matter is subtle, the teacher often repeats to reinforce the knowledge in the student's mind. Lord is emphatic about Bhuya Pravakshami, offering the same gnanam again and again, gaining this knowledge, which he says all the sages have reached the ultimate success. What is so special about this gnanam? It is Atma Gnanam. Lord says, among the various disciplines of knowledge, this is Uttama, the most exalted, and thus having known this Brahma Gnanam, which results in moksha. And this is ultimate desire of any seeker. Swami Paramatmananda refers the aparajnana subject as limitless and without, and similar to, he says, this is something like chemistry, psychology, and so many other subjects which can be explored without a final point of culmination. Whereas parajnana is the end in itself, ceasing in the knowledge of the tattva, the truth of everything, resulting in obtaining palam, that is moksha, meaning release from the bondage of the body. That's the general terminology. It is further known that attaining moksha while living is called jivana mukti, and after death is videha mukti. Param siddham gata itah. Now, getting on to the further second verse, idam jnanam uparashritya mama sadamyam agatha sargepi nepo jayante pralaye na vidyanti cha. Well, the mind prompts to know what is this jivana mukti and videha mukti. Lord defines this idam jnanam upashitra, meaning by taking recourse and acquiring this knowledge, mama sadarmyam agataha, that is, the seekers have attained oneness with me. Wow, isn't this a startling command? I mean, commandment rather, by Bhagavan, that they attain Ishvara Swarupa, dropping their Jivatma. The descending seekers, inquisitiveness grows. What is this Ishvara Swarupa? Ishvara is Purnatvam, even while living. So the first indication of Jivana Mukti is total inner sense of self-sufficiency. The second feature or glory of the Bhagavan is Abhaya Swarupa. Bhagavan is free from the sense of insecurity, whereas Jiva is loaded with insecurity. I mean, this is a sort of feeling everybody has. This Gnana will cross or erase the sense of insecurity once this knowledge comes to you. Well, having known the Swarupa of Bhagavan, which is Satyam, Gnanam, Anantam, Brahma, next query is what happens after death? Videha Mukti, meaning freedom from punarjanma, punarapi janmam, punarapi maranam. I mean, this is the cycle going on. So hence, they do not come to grief. The possibility of returning, it's very figurative. So that is the assurance Bhagavan is giving, that once you know this knowledge, there is no question of coming back in the cycle of birth and death. The third verse, Mama Yonir Mahat Brahma Tasmin Garbham Dadam Nyayam Sambhavahis Sarva Bhutanam Tato Bhavati Bharata. This scientific answer to the primordial question which is lurking in everybody, and the life is summarized in this way. The Lord uses our language. He comes to our wavelength to convey the coming into being of creation. For a child to be born, a father and mother are required. Similarly, an intelligent and effective cause, Purusha, along with a material cause, Prakriti, Maya, or the cause of creation. Lord Krishna endorses that consciousness and matter existed from beginningless time, immemorial. It is further reminded that Prakriti, Mama Yoni, from Yoni, everything is born. The material cause, Maya, has no independent existence and inseparable from Parameshwara. Therefore, Prakriti enhances both subtle and gross bodies of all beings. The word Yoni is qualified by two words, Mahat and Brahma. The cause out of which everything has come is Mahat, and because of which everything grows and sustains is Brahma. Lord reiterates, I am Purusha Tattvam, and inseparable from me is Prakriti Tattvam or Maya Tattvam. Lord's candid statement, Aham Garbham Dadami, through the process of lending existence to consciousness to create from Maya Jagatkara. Swamiji states that the scientists say that before Big Bang, one cannot talk about the time and space. Well, in the time that is called time of singularity. It is a state of non-information. This in Vedanta is Maya. Thereafter, at that moment of Big Bang, the inexplicable moment, everything evolves naturally. So the Lord to Arjuna, hey Bharata, this is what is happening. Now, going further into the fourth verse, Sarva Yonisho Kaunteya Murthaya Sambhavami Yah Tasam Brahma Mahad Yonihi Aham Bija Pradana Pita. The entire assembly of bodies born, which includes human beings and animals, are called Vrutyaha, as they have limbs. The original cause, Mahad Yoni, is Brahman, the father who gives the seed. Aham Bija Pradana Pita. He is the one who impregnates Maya and makes it create everything. It is known that Maya has no real existence by itself, and Ishvara, being omniscience, Sarvagatatva, and omnipotent, Sarva Shakti Matva, is the giver of the seed, not given, is the giver of the seed. Bijaprada. For whatever is born, Sasam, for all of them, Brahma Yoniha. That is, Maya is the universal mother. And hence, we're all the children of Brahman plus Maya. Well, Purusha plus Prakriti. In fact, it goes further to say that we are the children of Brahman plus Maya, Purusha plus Prakriti, consciousness plus matter, and a mixture of both. Saguna, Nirguna. This is going to be studied in the ensuing verses. Verse 5. Sattvam Rajas Samayiti Guna Prakriti Sambhava Nibaddanti Mahabaho Dehinam Divyanam. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are the three qualities of the material cause of creation, Prakriti. Guna is purely a technical term or a name given to by Shastra, which is a certain phenomenon. So that's what is Maya. And so with so much of clarity, they say this is just a phenomenon. In fact, there are not attributes like small, green, big, circular, and so on, which he perceived, or you can not qualify a substance. Guna is not something different from Maya. These gunas are the very nature, swarupa. They can be experienced like whatever gaining of knowledge or sukha, which or desire and anger, and so many of these which can be experienced. Dullness or delusion, which are all the dullness is the tamas prakriti, whereas rajas is desire and anger, and sukha we call it the prakriti prakritima. Shankara says they securely bind a deham in Iva. And one way to get rid of these gunas and knowing that you are nirguna. Well, this is the easiest mantra, that knowing that you are nirguna. From the standpoint of Atma, the seemingly bondage is to, or it could be by ignorance. And the changeless indweller Atma is forever free from any bondage. Achinam Ibananti. Bhagavan next defines one by one the different gunas. Swamiji says that he refers or gives an analogy of the gems, that there is a difference between sapphire, diamond, and so many other precious stones, which are all precious stones, but each one has something distinct differences. So we move on to the verse 6. Tattva sattvam nirmalatvam prakasakam mamamayam sukha sangena baddinati gnana sangena chanaga. Among the three qualities are guna, firstly taking sattva, which is defined as anamaya, without affiliation, because it is free from any kind of impurity, nirmala tat. Sattva is able to reflect the consciousness very clearly. It is prakashaha, and therefore endows you with the capacity to imbibe clear knowledge without any confusion. Experiencing sukha or changelessness is sattva predominance. Apparently, this leads to bondage. Though it's noble, yet dependence cultivates. Sukha sangena. The second type of bondage is jnana sangena. The introvert mind, for our inner journey, definitely it's an introvert mind we need. And the introvert mind wants to think, study, and know in depth. That is the very feature or nature of that. So limitation is again the bondage. Even in mind, that is sattva predominant, there are tamas and rajas, which sometimes take an upper hand. Every ahamkāra has all these gunas, and every guna binds into a person. Swamiji says that one should know that knowledge is the property of the mind and not the Atma. Krishna calls Arjuna Anaga, a person of pure mind. That is sort of, yeah. And now going on to 14.7. Rajo ragatmam videhi atmasanga samtabhavani om tamat badnani kaunteya karmo sangeni dehinam. A rajasic mind is extrovert, always wanting to relate with things and people. Sattvic is nivritti pradhana, whereas nivritti pradhana along with seclusion and withdrawal, while rajasic is pravritti pradhana. Rajas has two dimensions. One is longing, Krishna, and the other excessive attachment, asanga. Raga is born from Krishna. Karma yoga requires, for instance, let's go to the defense forces who are securing our borders, and they are rajas based, right? So the rajas oriented with studying, whereas we sattvic, the Vedantins, so we need a sattvic mindset or guna. So every range of sadhana requires one guna, and the role is vital. Sattva guna makes a person aparigraha, wanting to drop things, while rajoguna infuses the person to hold on, ragat makam, and rajas is entrenched in this bondage, vibandhanti. Expression of raga is translated to karma, and hence papa punya accumulates or emanates. Expression of raga is translated to karma. Okay. However, Swamiji says that karma yoga is required for chitta shuddhi. Vedanta says that this is required up to a particular stage and has to be followed by jnana yoga. That is how a person evolves. Now, getting on to verse 8. Tamas, this is more of the gunas of tamas. Tamas tattva gnanam vidimohanam sarvadehinam ramadglasya. Okay, it goes like that. And then here it says, Lord says that tamas is born out of ignorance. Whether a person is sattva or rajas predominant, he is ignorant until he knows his nature of self. What is said here is not self-ignorance. It is not the avidya, but ignorance regarding what is to be done and not to be done, what is right and wrong, lacking dharma or adharma viveka. When tamas prevails, the person is unable to use his buddhi. Since there is delusion, things look different for what they are, and everything seems to be right for him. For all the for all this is Mohanam Sattva. Value structures and priorities become confused and distorted. And procrastination is inherent attitude. And sleep, lack of inertia and willpower. And he always looks for shortcuts to make up for the pitfalls. Alasya, or slothfulness, which again is portrayed in this slide. This is what obstructs the fulfillment of raga, lethargy. Now, moving on to the 9th verse, Lord repeats the topic of bandhana, prakara, bandhana prakara. Each guna binds by, each guna binds in a certain form of addiction called sangena. Sattva causes quietude, nivritti, and impelling one in present or in pursuit of sukha. Rajas binds a person in the form of getting into action, karma sangena. Tamas is a mixture of which is, or it envelops into darkness. Everyone is a mixture of all these three gunas, yet there is a manifestation of a particular guna which dominates one of the other two. And how is that possible? Because one guna dominates the other two, and that predominates. Getting on to the 10th verse, Shankara says, Bhavanti causes, or it causes Udbhavanti. It arises, or it means Vardhanti. It increases. One guna predominates, overwhelming the other two, and thus the predominant guna manifests. Supposedly, if it is sattva knowledge, cheerfulness, sama, dhamma, adherence to values appear. Similarly, rajas produces desire to action. When sattva and rajas are overpowered, rajas, or these two are overpowered, tamas arises, producing lethargy, apathy, sleep, and so on. Moving on to the 11th verse. Well, from a different standpoint of view, Lord points out the same thing in this verse. Sarva Dvareshu literally means reference to all the gates, sense organs, or it's also said the light, prakasha. Vritti is ahamkāra, arises in all the sense organs in this physical body. A light of awareness and knowledge of alertness and concentration is born, and we infer sattva is predominant. This happens to everybody. The 12th verse talks about rajas. Rajas manifests when it is predominant. Greed, lobha, to encroach or acquire others' wealth, and miserliness also, meaningless activity, or some of the signs are fidgeting, biting nails, are all these signs of rajas guna. Swamiji says that even in a sattvic person, rajas can predominate at a given time. Even rajas is good since it makes you act. So this is the plus point of rajas, because that also is required, or else you could become tamasic. So similarly, tamas is also good. See, this is the other flip side of the coin. And how is it good? Tamas gives you rest. The difficulty arises of the gunas predominate at the wrong time. Well, we get every day within the chores we do, or the timetable strategy we adopt in the during every day. All the three gunas are pivotal. Now, sometimes what happens, the absence of sama, tranquility, is another manifestation of rajas, which is again mental restlessness. as opposed to physical restlessness. Shankara says it is the activity to fulfill a mindset, desire, or longing for something which you've been aspiring. Spriha. The indication of tamas is told next in the 13th verse. When tamas is predominant, there is apraksha, absence of alertness, and discrimination, and pramada, total indifference to performing any action. Sometimes the apravritti, no activity, and there will be justification for the lack of activity. Even theory of karma will be portrayed. So that is how the tamasic people try to justify their inaction or activity, or give it an alibi. The 14th verse is Dehabhuti. The one who obtains in this body is the jiva. In the verse, it is to distinguish sattva among the three gunas, which the word tu, well, that distinguishes sattva among the three gunas. If his life is predominantly sattvika, then the type of thinking that is during one's lifetime will be determined when he is yada pravanti yati. Then he goes to the lokam or the worlds according to his gunas, which are not fraught with pain. In other words, he goes to the worlds if those who know the highest. The 15th verse, this describes a person to whom rajas is predominant. Well, during his lifetime and time of death, if it's he's born among those who are committed to karma. Karma is sangena jayate. Similarly, a person who lived and died with tamasic gunas will be born to parents steeped in delusion. This teaches us we make one guna predominant over the other. Two, and we, knowing all this, we cultivate discipline, and this way easier to become gunatita. These are ways. Now, as in the beginning, we were saying how to get over this gunas, and this is one based way of being aware, and Vedanta teaches us the way we need to go about in the rest of our lifetime, at least that way. Or the 16th verse, when the action done is good, the result is sattvika, nirmala, pure, and devoid of distress. When vihiti and kamya karma are being prescribed by the Vedas, the result, he enjoys freedom from pain in heaven or elsewhere for a length of time. A person impelled by rajas is under great pressure that he will incur dukkha in variations of discomfort. The result born out of tamas is again will be born in the family with rudimentary knowledge. So he takes birth after death in a very rudimentary, because throughout his life he's been into the tamasic gunas. The 17th verse. Having told the results of gunas in the terms of further birth, Bhagavan explains the results in this life. From sattva is born knowledge, and this liberates moksha. Thus, sattva is to be nurtured. From rajas, there is greed, and from us, indifference and erroneous conclusions. Emotions, likes and dislikes, reflect the predominance of one guna or the other. So to live a mature life, assimilation of proper values can be, that is what we need to achieve. So that is what we need to follow and practice. Now coming to the last verse, the 18th verse. So Lord says that those abiding in sattva go to the worlds higher up, and those belong to the rajas remain in the middle, and tamas predominant go down. In other words, greater degree of happiness according to their respective gunas. So that is how the 18th chapter is over. The 18th verse is over, and I move on to the Tattva Bodha, which is complementary and which is complementing the so far we studied. It is Shankara's text, and he has very elaborately talked about the Varna Dharma. Yeah, please. For accomplishing this four purusharthas, that is dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, this has to provide so that infrastructure of Varna Dharma Vyavastha. Varna Dharma Vyavastha is divided into two vibhagas. Shankara does it as Varna Vyavastha and Ashrama Vyavastha. So Varna Vibhaga, what is this Vyavastha? It is sociological schemes, and it's a must for upliftment, growth, and preparing oneself to contribute to the society. And what is Ashrama Vyavastha? It is the individual growth and a resource in one's life. When individuals progress, society progresses. That is the caption which is given. So what is this Varna Vyavastha? It is now again segregated or divided into the four caste system, or according to the birth: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. This is classified according to Guna, Karma, and Janma. The salient features of Guna Brahman is the Guna Brahman is spiritually oriented, contemplative, and loving, is silent, prefers solitude, and loves the Prakriti, an ultimate reality. Sattva Pradhana is the Brahman is Sattva Pradhana. Next, we move on to the Gnana Kshatriya. I mean, Guna Kshatriya, not Gnana Kshatriya, it's Guna Kshatriya. What is more salient about this Guna Kshatriya is he's a dynamic person. The personality is dynamism, interacted to, and he contributes, serving, upliftment of the society, selfless, motivated mind. Is Shuddha, Rajas Pradhana, activity with noble motives. And the Guna of Vaishya is equally dynamic as the previous one, but with, it says his selfish motive, Ashuddha, Rajas Pradhana. And what is Guna Shruddha? Shudra. His nature is lethargic, is totally selfless, and he's not astute in material nor spiritual growth. Is tamasic pradhana predominantly. So the karma vibhaga, now we move on to the another topic of karma vibhaga, based on preferences. Individual can prefer according to his passion. This works on the contribution done to the society. Karma Brahmana, most important one, studying or teaching of our scriptures. And then Karma Kshatriya, he does a lot of public services. He is into administration and governing, law and order, and so on. This is his nature of when we come to the Karma Vibhaga, what he does. And what does Karma Vaishya do? He gets into all types of commercial activities, business or trade. And what is a Karma Shudra? He is unskilled or maybe semi-skilled. He is the labor class, or you could call them, decipher them. He does not have an independent thinking, and he serves all the other three groups. That is the way the community was progressing in those days. And then we move on to the next category is Jati Vibhaga, based on both Janma. Jati means Janma, Jati Brahmana, Jati Kshatriya, Jati Vaishya, and Jati Shudra. This is the gradation of Varnas It is that this is nothing superior or inferior. As it is concerned, there is no inferiority or superiority. Well, karma vibhaga is also is done, since all of these are equally important. There is a guna brahmana is superior to the guna kshatriya, who is superior to guna vaishya, or who is superior to guna shudra. Guna brahmana is a chance of the Lord whenever guna shraddha is classified. So that is how it goes. And now, to conclude, we have a choice. Here again, the differentiation, the very clear example or a candid example or the best example is Prahlada, is an asura, but his character was a Brahmana. Here, we have no choice for any when we are born in particular janma, but certainly choice is there when in the next janma. That could be a consolation. Well, and then the karma vibhaga. Choose your preferences based on your passion. So this is how it goes. And we had a very nice session. Thanks for the opportunity. Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar. Thank you very much for your clear description of this section of DISHA as well as Tattva Bodha. You have clearly explained to us about the three gunas of Anatma, and you have also highlighted the nature or the phalam and gati of each guna. You have also very nicely touched upon Varna Ashrama Vyavastha as a unique design for peace and prosperity. And this is meant for upliftment, growth, and prosperity of the society as a whole. Coming on to the characteristics of three gunas, as was told by you clearly, Sattva is a nature of light, clarity, purity, insight, knowledge, intelligence, inspiration, peace, contentment, harmony, order, beauty. So this is what we have seen in your explanations, and it is essential power. Its essential power is that of a revelation. And what we learned from your explanation is the rajas is of the nature of passion, desire, activity, motion, creativity, force, and will. Its essential power is projection. Tamas is of the nature of density, heaviness, groundedness, solidity, practicality, dullness, apathy, laziness, and ignorance, and its essential power is concealment. This table gives a clear description of Sattva Guna, Rajasic Guna, and Tamo Guna. A Sattva Guna person is a Gnana Pradhana Purusha, where cognitive and intellectual, he is cognitive and intellectual, and has Gnanendriyas very active. And this Sattva Guna Pradhana Purusha is turned inwards and is less socializing and intellectually quite active, analyzing, thinking, expresses in the form of Nivrutti Pradhana, and the thinking mind loves tranquility. Whereas that of Rajasic Guna, it is a Karma Pradhana Purusha, where Karmendriyas are active. And a Rajasic Guna Pradhana person is highly turned outwards, and he loves socializing, interacting, and is Pravritti Pradhana, and he cannot withstand silence. Whereas Tamoguna has suppression of both Sattva and Rajas. And what we need to note here is all the three, Sattva, Rajasic, and Tamoguna, leads to bondage. And now coming on to the Bandhana Prakara, or the bondage or the addiction created by all three gunas. The verse 14.9 gives this clear description. Sattvic mind develops Shanta Vritti, Sukha and Jnana Sanghena Bandhanti, and experiences intellectual samsara. Rajasic mind develops Karma Sanghena and addiction because Rajoguna binds the individual to activity and experiences workaholic samsara. Whereas the Tamasic mind develops mudha vritti and bondage due to moha hatka atmam, moha hatmakam, meaning delusion, experiences mudha samsara. Now coming on to phalam and gati. What we understand is phalam is a consequence in this life, whereas the gati is the consequence after life. A sattvic person undertakes noble activities and so has tranquility, free of stress and strain. And in a sattvic home, even when material accomplishment is limited, peace and harmony will prevail. Whereas a rajasic person engages in intense activities and therefore there will be stress and strain and thus disharmony and happiness. In a rajasic home, even when material prosperity is persistent, inner peace may be absent. A tamasic person's life is wasted because of physical and intellectual laziness. After death, a rajoguna dominant person will be reborn in Manushya or Bhuloka. And after death, a tamoguna person will be reborn in lower world or lokas. And even if they are reborn in Bhuloka, they will be born as animals or plants and not humans. This particular slide gives a description of all the verses what we have studied so far. It talks about all the gunatraya in terms of lakshanam, bandhana prakara, lingam, phalam, and gati. The lakshanam or the definition of sattva is prakashatmakam or the brightness. Rajas is ragatmakam or delusion, and tamas is mohanatmakam or attachment. And the bandhana prakara of sattva is jnana sangha, the knowledge. That of rajas is karma sangha, the activity, and that of tamas is pramada sangha or indifference. The lingam or the sign of predominance of sattva is jnana vriddhi, of rajas is karma vriddhi, and that of tamas is pramada vriddhi. The phalam, which is consequence in this life of sattva, is punya and gnanam, or the punya or knowledge. That of rajas is dukkham and lobha, the sorrow or greed. That of tamas is ajnanam and moha, or the ignorance and delusion. And regarding gati, that is what? Travel after death. In a sattvic guna, it is urdhva gati, to higher lokas. Rajasic guna is madhyama gati, to middle lokas, and tamoguna person, tamoguna predominant, will have adhogati, to lower lokas. Even though there are three gunas are the causes of bondage for liberation, we have to use three gunas intelligently as the stepping stone to transcend them. Tamoguna for sufficient rest and recuperation, Rajoguna for activity to become karma phala pradhana purusha. You have to follow karma yoga, perform pancha mahayagna, etc. And Sattva guna to go to jnana yoga. Gunas can be blessing or a curse depending on how we utilize it for our inner growth. It can become rope or shackle to bind. Finally, through Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, we transcend the gunas to become gunatita. Our spiritual journey should begin from Tamoguna Pradhana to Rajoguna Pradhana to Sattva Guna Pradhana, and then finally to Gunatita life. With that, we conclude this, and we now have Srimati Panaga taking us through the teaching quiz. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satya. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. As we have seen, the first 18 verses of this chapter is less about Atma Gnana and more about helping us discover who we really are. So it's a very interesting and a light chapter, and we will realize that we have all three types of gunas within us, and Krishna urges us to move from the lowest, that is tamas, to rajas, and finally to sattva, and finally beyond all the three, which actually bind us to Gnana Yoga and then Gnana. We have a short teaching quiz on what we have learned through Bhaskarji's explanation and Dr. Satya's summary. I request Smita ji to please unmute and answer. First one. Atma was defined as Kshetragna in the 13th chapter. How is it defined in the 14th chapter? Is it as Turiya, as Brahman, as Gunatita, or Gunatraya?
It is explained as Gunatita.
Yes, ma'am. So the Atma is beyond all the three gunas. That's why it is Guna Atitaha. Second question. In the first verse, Sri Krishna calls Atma Gnanam as both Param and Uttamam. Why? As we can see in this verse, Param Bhuyaha Pravakshyami Gnananam Gnanam Uttamam. Why does he use two superlatives here?
Param is a knowledge, greatest knowledge, and Uttamam is a result of this greatest knowledge, that's a moksha. It's a greatest accomplishment as a human being.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, the knowledge itself is the greatest knowledge to be known, and the result of this knowledge, that is moksha, is the highest accomplishment of this human birth. Next question. In the second verse, Sri Krishna says, those who gain this knowledge are neither reborn, nor do they suffer death during pralaya. Where do these people go? The answer lies as a clue in the first line of this verse.
The jnanis, they attain the same nature as Lord Krishna. Mama sa dharmyam agataha. Dharmyam here means, it's a significant word. It means Ishvara Sarupa.
Yes, ma'am. So jnanis won't suffer rebirth, and they attain, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that they attain my nature, that is Sri Krishna's nature, as Mama Sa Dharmyam Agataha, and that is Ishvara Swarupa. They merge with the Brahman. Next question. Choose the 4 adjectives that correctly describe Prakriti. Is it A, Nirguna, Nirvikara, Satya Chetana, or B, Saguna, Nirvikara, Mithya Achetana, or C, Saguna, Savikara, Mithya Chetana, or D, Saguna, Savikara, Mithya Achetana?
It is D, Saguna, Savikara, Mithya Achetana.
Right. So, Prakriti, that is Maya, is Saguna. It is endowed with all the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. It is Savikara. It is constantly undergoing some change. It is Mithya. It does not absolutely exist. And it is Achetana. It does not have consciousness of its own. Next question. In the third verse, Sri Krishna says that Prakriti is the womb in which he, the Purusha, places the seed of creation. Which of the following statements is false? Prakriti and Purusha are 2 eternal entities who unite to create the universe. Brahman, the Chetana Tattva, enlivens Maya, the Achetana Tattva, at the time of creation. Due to this union, creation has both Prakriti and Purusha aspects, that is both matter and consciousness aspects. Or D, all non-living things in this universe have only Prakriti or the matter principle.
It's the D, all non-living things in the universe, they have only Prakriti or matter principle. They just need a media to reflect the Chetana Tattva. They lack that.
Absolutely. So every non-living thing, at a table, chair, the wall, a stone, any material that we see in this world around us has both Prakriti and Purusha principles, but they do not have a reflecting media. Yes, ma'am. Next question. Guna means attribute in Sanskrit. What is another meaning of this word?
It means rope or a shackle which
Yeah.
bind the people to samsara.
Right. So Sanskrit is a beautiful language which has multiple meanings for each word. And here, the second meaning of guna can't be more appropriate. Meaning that they bind us to samsara in one way or the other. Right, ma'am. Next question. We know that different gunas lead to different consequences called phalam and gatihi. What is the difference between these two?
Phalam is a consequence before birth, before death, and while gatihi is consequence which is experienced after death or after life.
Yeah, that's right. So all the phalam that we experience in this life can be the result of karmas performed in this life or in the past life. But we experience their fruits in this life. And gatihi is what we will experience after death. Shukla Gati, Krishna Gati, as we'll see in the 8th chapter. Yeah. In question 8, according to Vedantic parlance, Prakriti, that is the body-mind complex, plus Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness, is equal to
Ahamkāra.
That's right. So we have the matter principle that is represented by Prakriti, the body-mind complex, and the Chidabhasa, which is the reflected consciousness, which together make up our ahamkāra. Next slide. Now we come to the gunas proper. Which guna is nivritti pradhana? That is, the mind is turned inward, and the gnanendriyas, that is, the sense organs, are dominant.
It's a sattva guna, which is
Yes,
nivritti pradhana.
That is true. So, as Dr. Sattva very nicely summed up, and as Bhaskarji explained the characteristics of each of these gunas, Sattva guna is nivritti pradhana. Next question. Rajoguna is what pradhana? So the mind, where the mind is turned outward, and the karmendriyas, the organs of action, are active.
It's a pravritti guna, pravritti pradhana.
Yes, that's true. So now we are very clear about these two words, pravritti and nivritti. Yeah. Next question. Now, what is tamoguna? Tamoguna is the dash of both sattva and rajoguna.
It's a separation of both the sattva and rajoguna.
Yeah. So a person with a dominant tamoguna is neither inclined towards gaining knowledge, nor is he inclined towards doing any action. That's why it says it is the suppression of both these better gunas, as sattva and rajas gunas. Next question. All the three gunas are inherent in
Prakriti.
That's true. Next question. Dash guna is necessary for us to rest and recuperate.
It's tamoguna, which is necessary for us to rest and recuperate.
Yeah. And many times we sort of indulge in more than our share.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. Can we move on to the next question? With respect to guna, my lower nature is dash and my higher nature is dash.
With respect to guna, my lower nature is saguna ahamkāra and higher nature is nirguna sakshi.
Yes, ma'am. That's perfect. So our ahamkāra has all the three gunas that are present, and our higher nature is the nirguna sakshi. That is the guna atita aspect. Next question. Though sattva guna is bright and harmless due to its purity, why does Lord Krishna say it is binding?
Because sattva guna binds, it causes attachment to pleasure and knowledge. And for that matter, attachment is a bondage. Any attachment is a bondage.
Yeah. So even though sattva guna is the best guna that we can have, we shouldn't get too attached to intellectual samsara, as Swamiji calls it. We want to keep knowing more and more, and are not content with understanding and assimilating the meaning of what we have learned. So this attachment towards silence, towards sattvic pleasures, and towards knowledge is again a binding guna, and that is so that's why Krishna tells that we have to move beyond sattva guna also. Next question. So classify these three indicators as sattva, rajas, or tamas. To give you some method to do this, you can each guna has three adjectives to it. So you can label, so you can list it out like that, Smita ma'am.
Okay, sattva is calm, then contemplative, then
Right.
clarity of thought.
Perfect.
And then rajas is ambitious, passionate, and restless.
Yes.
Okay. Then tamas is lazy, careless, and indecisive.
Yeah. That's right. So these are the three, just a sprinkling of indicators of our of the qualities present in us. Next slide. So this is the order of character evolution. We are born with as inactivity being our dominant nature when we are babies, and then it moves on to selfish activity. Then we have to move on to selfless activity. Then finally to inquiry. State whether the following guna evolution is right. That is, where inactivity is whether it is tamas dominant, and then it moves on to being rajas, and then finally to sattva. Is this right?
Yes, it's true. It's first tamoguna, then rajas, and then it is a sattvic. It ends in sattvic.
Yeah, as we can see in the first, it is tamo guna, which is dominant. Next comes rajas, and last is the sattva guna. In the next one, it is the rajoguna, which is dominated by tamas. Then in the third one, it is we graduate to the rajoguna being dominated by sattva guna. Then finally, it is sattva guna becoming predominant, followed by rajas and tamas. That's right. The next question. Mention the incongruity in this statement. The sattva guna pradhana gnani will travel to a higher, purer loka after death.
This statement should be sattva guna pradhana jnani, as is a gunatita, it does not travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the gnani is guna atita. The statement should have been sattva guna pradhana agnani. So this sattva guna person has not yet come to gnana yoga. Hence, he has not received atma gnanam. That's why he will be born in a purer birth in his next life. Whereas the rajoguna pradhana gnani will be reborn in bhuloka. That is, he will have a similar birth. And a tamo guna pradhana gnani will have an inferior birth, as very nicely explained by Dr. Satya. Next question. The phalam of sattvic guna is peace, rajasic is sorrow, and that of a tamasic person is?
As a human life being wasted or something like that.
Yeah.
Because
that's
it's
true.
lazy and okay.
Yes, absolutely. Because it is after several janmas of punya that we have obtained this human life. And if we don't use it to even perform the minimum actions that are required of us, then it is a complete waste of a human life. And that is the phalam of a tamasic person. Next question. Now we enter into the Varna Dharma of Tattva Bodha. What is the difference between the Varna scheme and the Ashrama scheme? In the Varna scheme, it is meant as a social, it is a social scheme meant for the upliftment of the whole society. But the Ashrama is an individual scheme. We go through, first is Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, then Sannyasa. So it is our spiritual growth through various stages of our life. But the Varna is a social scheme which is meant for the growth and functioning of the entire society. Next questions. Name the 3 factors on which Varna Dharma is classified as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra.
Guna, based on guna, karma, and jati.
Absolutely. So, unlike what is commonly understood today as a caste system and is much ridiculed, where they focus only on jati as the cause, as the classification on which on which the Varna system is based. Actually, Sri Krishna mentions 3 principles. That is the guna, that is character of a person. Next is karma, his or her profession, and finally jati, that is birth. Next question. What is the difference between a guna kshatriya and a guna vaishya?
Guna kshatriya is a dynamic person, is a shuddha rajasic pradhana, immersed in worldly activities, but with a good intention or a noble intention, who works for the upliftment of the society, as Dr. Satyanarayan has explained and Bhaskar ji has explained. And then the guna vaishya is, one is with ashuddha rajas pradhana, who has a selfish motive, who works for his selfish intention.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. This is how we saw in one of the previous questions. So the character evolution from selfish activity to selfless activity. So a guna vaishya is ashuddha rajas pradhana. So all his activities have a very clearly defined selfish motive. But guna kshatriya, he is also immersed in worldly in activities, but with noble motives meant for the good of the entire society. The next question. What is the difference between a guna shudra and a karma shudra? Which one is better?
Guna shudra is one with the tamoguna pradha, who has a tamoguna pradhana, and karma shudra is one who engages in helping others as a service to other professions. And obviously the karma shudra is better than the guna shudra.
Yes. Swamiji is very clear that a karma shudra person is essential for the equal functioning of the entire society. So whereas a guna shudra is a tamo guna pradhana person and who really doesn't help the society in any way. That's why it is much better to be a karma shudra who helps in all the other professions achieve their goals. Next question. Can one be a guna shudra and a karma kshatriya?
No. Guna shudra is one who is lethargic, passive, and who is not motivated, who doesn't have a motivated personality. He cannot be a karma kshatriya, because karma kshatriya is always engaged in worldly activities and helping others, whereas guna shudra is a very lethargic person who is non-active.
That's true. Yeah, you have told the answer and explained it correctly. So we'll move on to the next question. Can a guna, now this question combines all the three. Can a guna brahmana be a jati vaishya and a karma kshatriya?
Yeah, he can be. Because Guna Brahmana is one who is a spiritually oriented person. He can be born in a Vaishya family and he can be engaged in a profession and he can serve the society.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah. We'll move to the last question. Is there any gradation at all in the four varnas, or all the four equal?
All four varnas are equally based on jati karma, but Guna Brahmana is better than a Guna Kshat. They're all. Is there any gradation in four varnas? No? Okay. All four varnas are equal, I feel, based on jati and karma.
Yes. Yeah, this classification is very important. Shri Krishna says that all the four varnas are equal based on jati and karma. So a jati brahmana is will have the same place in society as a jati kshatriya, jati vaishya, or a jati shudra. But then and same with regard to karma, because all the varnas are like four important organs of the society, and each organ has to perform its duty correctly for the society to function as a whole. There is a gradation only according to the guna. As we see, a guna shudra, that is a tamo guna person, the lowest, and he moves on to being a guna vaishya, who is an ashuddha rajas pradhana guna, then moving on to a guna kshatriya, who is a shuddha rajas pradhana, and finally to a guna brahmana, that is the sattva guna pradhana person. This is the gradation according to the guna mentioned by Lord Krishna. With this, we come to today's teaching quiz. Thank you very much, Smita ma'am, for helping us understand this chapter better.
Thank you, Panagaji.
Thank you. Thank you, Panagaji and Smitaji, for such a great quiz. It was really very informative. Thank you, Bhaskar sir, for a wonderful session. My thanks are also due to you, friends, for your focused participation. Let us log in for our verse by verse session 149 on 26th May 2023 for the summary of Mundakopanishad. Please log in at 6:45 p.m. sharp on Friday. Thank you. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.